The two cherubs in the Holy of Holies really do support evolution. They are proof that evolution is true. The two cherubs on the Ark of the Covenant are composite figures. Each one is part eagle, part bull, part lion, and each has the head of a man. This is supported in Ezekiel 1, verse 10, and chapter 10, verse 14. Now, Ezekiel is having a vision about the cherubs in the Holy of Holies, and in the vision they are different in shape than the cherubs that are the real cherubs in the Holy of Holies. But what's true about his vision is the identity of the four creatures. His vision has the right creatures, the eagle, bull, lion, and man. He has that much right. Since I'm a big believer in theistic evolution, I'm always on the alert, always on the lookout for any Bible passages that support evolution. So when I came across the fact that these two cherubs are composite figures, I immediately reacted with, wow, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I should explain that evolution boils down to the idea that all life forms are connected. The species that exist today, they came from earlier species, and you trace it back far enough, and there is one universal ancestor that produced all the species we have today. Life started off with a single cell. The single cell creatures developed into polycell creatures, and the first organism gave rise to the second to the third to the fourth, and so forth, on and on. Now the eagle in the cherubs, the cherubs have the wings of the eagle and the claws of the lion and the torso of the bull and the face and head of a man. Now the eagle would stand for birds in general, or you could say reptiles, because that's what birds are, modified reptiles. The ox would stand for mammals in general, and the lion would stand for cats, and cats are tree climbers, and so by extension they could represent monkeys, because monkeys are tree climbers, of course, and monkeys are related to primates. Finally, the man, the human head, represents man, and man comes after the primates. So there's a sequence presented by the cherubs. The sequence again is reptiles, mammals in general, and then in particular the primates. and at the top is man. Man is the crown or climax of the evolutionary progression. I'm not saying that man owes his existence to the animals. I'm saying that God created man, but he did it through creating the animals and having man come from the primates. How does God create the individual human adult? The adult comes via the animal-like child. The child is crawling on all fours, so the child is like an animal. The adult comes through that child, through that animal, so to speak. And just like God creates the adult through the child, God creates the human species through the animal species. The adult does not owe his existence to the child, but to the mother, which is the God figure, the creator figure. And just like I owe my existence to my mother, mankind owes its existence to God. Yes, I am overjoyed that this composite figure, these two composite figures, are God had Moses put them in the Holy of Holies, which is the holiest location on earth. These composite figures portray the secret of how God created life, how God, the secret of God's creatorship. It must have been important to God for him to have Moses put these composite figures in the Holy of Holies on the Ark of the Covenant. The secret of how God created all the species of life that we have today is that God created one species, and then from that first species he created the second, and then the third, and the fourth came from the third, and so forth. And so this basically agrees with the four creatures that are represented in the cherubs. Long story short, evolution is true, but not evolution by mere chance. Evolution requires God, because the difficulty in mammals coming forth from reptiles, and reptiles coming forth from amphibians, and them coming forth from fish, and fish coming forth from single-celled animals, all that is totally improbable. So I'm saying that I'm totally against naturalistic or atheistic evolution, and the way to fight that evolution, that bad evolution, is with good evolution. Fighting evolution with evolution is fighting fire with fire. Now, God shows us that he supports fighting fire with fire, because how did Christ fight the Pharisees? He raised up a Pharisee. Saul of Tarsus was a Pharisee. He became Paul the Apostle. So God used a Pharisee to fight the Pharisees, a good Pharisee to fight the bad Pharisees. So he really was endorsing the idea of fighting fire with fire. So that supports what I'm doing. I'm saying, let's fight the bad evolution with the good evolution. And it's better than trying to fight the bad evolution with young Earth creationism. Young Earth creationism is like the Polish cavalry in World War II coming out. The Polish fighters were coming out on horseback, charging at the Nazi battle tanks. That was very noble of them, but it was not effective. The question the question is obvious, obviously appropriate, is these cherubs are very freakish, and so why would God move upon Moses to have him put these freakish statues in the holiest place on earth, the Holy of Holies? The idea is that it must be extremely important to God for these statues to be there, because they're just so odd and so unusual. The obvious answer, well, okay, maybe it's not so obvious after all, but the answer is that God arranged for Moses to put the statues in the Holy of Holies, because that's God's way of revealing the secret of how He created all the variety of life that there is on this planet. The interconnectedness of the four species that are in the two cherubs are a microcosm of the much greater and wider interconnectedness of all the species that make up the life on this planet. The thing to remember is all the life forms we have today came forth from, they're descendants from, the universal common ancestor. I'm going to write a long transcript in the description box below this video. So if you want to make a copy of it, a paper copy, that way you could keep it even after EMP destroys or ruins the computers. EMP is coming when Russia bombs this country, which I expect at the end of this month, end of September. Because the Feast of Tabernacles is starting next week, and it runs out like October 1st. And see my video. Look for my video about the Feast of Tabernacles being the time, being a possibility as the time of the rapture and the time of the Russian attack that facilitates the rapture. Now I'm going to make part 2 of this video about the two cherubs on the Ark of the Covenant in the Holy of Holies. Part 2 will explain that the Holy of Holies corresponds to the womb. The temple itself is female in nature. I'll explain that in Part 2. And the Holy of Holies would be that part of the temple which corresponds to the womb, which would be appropriate, the appropriate place for the two cherubs to be located, for the because they represent evolution, and evolution takes place in the womb. That's where it shows up. So please take a look at my the video that I'm going to make right after this one.